Good morning to our colleagues, our media colleagues, and our DBE officials. And a good morning to the Deputy Minister, Dr. Mhaule. Thank you very much for joining us for this state of readiness. So today we are briefing the nation on the country's state of readiness for the 2024 National Senior Certificate Examinations. These examinations are not only a critical milestone for the learners that are involved, but they also represent the cumulative efforts of our education system, our schools, our communities, and of course the Department of Education. With just hours to go before the first paper is written, I am proud to announce that we are ready to administer the 2024 NSC exams, holding ourselves to the best-in-class integrity, security, and efficiency of standards. Outside of the national and local government elections, I've yet to learn of any other logistical project of this magnitude, because we are rolling this out across all 9 provinces in various communities. This year, we have 727,121 full-time candidates, 155,215 part-time candidates who will be sitting for this exam. And that is a total of 882,336 candidates across South Africa. Concerning private schools, there are 16,400 learners who will be taking the IEB exams. These learners have faced a range of challenges throughout their academic journeys, mainly due to the impact of COVID-19 in the earlier schooling years. The class of 2024 entered grade 8 in 2020, right at the height of COVID-19 pandemic. This disruption caused by the pandemic during these formative years has had a lasting impact on their learning. Over the course of the academic journey, the department has instituted several mitigation measures to address these gaps. These interventions were part of the Learning Recovery Program, which aimed to mitigate the effects of the pandemic and to ensure that learners could make up for lost time. Some key initiatives supporting the class of 2024 have included personalized learning interventions, additional teaching support, socio-emotional care. Equally, provinces have rolled out face-to-face extra tuition sessions, Saturday catch-up programs, and extended school hours in key subjects, especially for the learners who struggled to cope with the curriculum due to content, due to earlier disruptions. These targeted interventions focused mainly on subjects of high enrollment, such as mathematics, life sciences, and business studies. In addition to classroom-based interventions, learners have also benefited from extensive support in the form of revision materials, past question papers, online resources that have also been made available to us through private-public partnerships. Our stakeholders such as Vodacom, MTN, the National Collaboration Trust, and other corporate partners have been instrumental in assisting us to make sure that our learners are catching up and they have the extra support that they need. Indeed, the adage "it takes a village to raise a child" is true, and that is evident in the education sector like no one else. Civil society and private sector support in helping create an environment is deeply felt. I want to encourage more members of the private sector and civil society to support the education sector as we face severe budget constraints. The system now is under strain and it needs your help. Ladies and gentlemen, the last push program by the various provincial departments has played a crucial role in ensuring that learners can consolidate their learning in the final days before the exams. These efforts have been aimed to ensure that no learner is left behind. Various provinces convened winter, spring, and other matric camps to take matriculants away from disruptions at home and social ills that could potentially distract them. In the last push, we have seen learners give their complete focus and attention to the upcoming matric exams. Furthermore, the department has ensured that our learners with disabilities are adequately catered for. Special accommodations, including braille papers, large print, the South African Sign Language adaptations, have been made to ensure that learners have all the resources and support they need to succeed. I now turn on to the readiness of the exam system to administer the 2024 NSC Matric examinations. The setting, printing, and distribution of question papers has been completed, with a total of 162 quality assured papers approved by Umalusi for this year's NSC exams. Taking lessons from previous instances of editing errors, the department has introduced additional quality gates for extra layer of checks. In terms of security, the department has taken extensive precautions to safeguard the integrity of the examination process. We have completed audits of all storage facilities across the country to ensure that they meet the required standards for secure handling of examination materials. All exam materials are stored under strict conditions, and provincial education departments have been equipped with SOPs to ensure the safe and secure handling of question papers from printing all the way to distribution. Furthermore, distribution trucks will be equipped with tracking systems to monitor their movements to ensure that question papers reach exam centers on time without compromise. As a department, we will monitor 6,334 public schools and 575 independent centers where examinations will be conducted. To ensure the integrity of the exams, we've deployed 70 part-time monitors to oversee high-risk centers. Additionally, at least 70% of examination centers will be monitored per session. These efforts will help to prevent irregularities such as group copying or leakage of exam papers. Once the exams are completed, then the focus will shift to the marking process, which is a critical part of ensuring the credibility and the fairness of the NSC exams. The department has appointed over 55,000 qualified markers across 188 marking centers nationwide. These markers have been selected based on a strict criteria to ensure that only experienced and qualified educators participate in the marking process. To further ensure consistency and fairness, marking standardization meetings will be held on each subject. These meetings bring together subject specialists, chief markers, to ensure that all marking is aligned with agreed upon standards. External moderators from Umalusi will closely monitor the process to ensure that there's no variation in the quality, the accuracy, and the marking across the different provinces. The department is also fully aware of the potential risks that could compromise the integrity of the examination process, and so in addition to security measures, as I have mentioned before, we are closely collaborating with the National Joint Operations Committee and the Provincial Joint Operations Committees, so the NatJogs and the ProvJogs, to ensure that security is always maintained. These partnerships will make sure that will help us manage any emerging risks, and we will be able to respond swiftly to any threats that may be able to arise. We are also engaging in an ongoing campaign to promote exam integrity among learners and their families. 2 days ago, I joined the matriculants of Pretoria Central High School in a national pledge signing ceremony. The provincial MECs of education also led pledge signing ceremonies in their various provinces. All learners now have signed what we call an exam pledge, in which they make a declaration to uphold the principles of honesty and integrity throughout the exam period. The pledge reinforces the importance of ethical conduct and discourages any attempts to engage in dishonest practices. Additionally, pledge signing ceremonies have been held in schools across the country to publicly reaffirm the learners' commitment to these values. Despite the challenges faced by the class of 2024, we are confident that our collective efforts have prepared them well for the upcoming examinations. Their journey has been one of resilience and determination, and we believe that they will rise to the occasion. Finally, to the learners, this is your moment to shine. You have worked hard over the past 12 years, and now you have the opportunity to showcase your knowledge, your skills, and your determination. We are confident that you will approach these exams with the focus, the discipline, and the commitment that has brought you this far. Please stay off Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and any other social media to minimize disruptions during this critical time. To the Department of Basic Education, along with our provincial counterparts, much has been done to prepare the NSC exams, but we must be vigilant. I am proud of the learners, the teachers, the schools, the provincial departments, and the DBE for the way in which they have prepared the system for the NSC of 2024. But we must remain vigilant until the very last exam is written. This requires the support of all South Africans and all stakeholders in respecting this precious opportunity of our young people to give them the support that they require. And we are asking communities to please support us in ensuring that there's minimal disruptions to these matric exams. These are important exams for our learners, and we want to make sure that there are no disruptions at all, that there are no protests at schools, there's no protest action in our communities, so that we can make sure that we insulate our learners from outside disruptions as much as possible. We are also pleading with my colleagues in Parliament and various other legislatures and local councils that oversight visits must please be minimized during this time. We want to make sure that there's absolutely no disruptions at our schools. This is a big moment for our matriculants. We want to make sure that they are able to write in peace and that we give them the requisite space. And so I do ask my colleagues, while there may be a desire to go and view exam centers, that we give our learners space to be able to do this. I know you remain committed to ensuring that the 2024 exams are administered with the highest integrity. These examinations will not only serve as testament to the quality of the education we deliver in our classrooms, but also as a stepping stone to the future success of our learners. The eyes of the country are now on us. We dare not fail. In closing, I wish all our learners the best for the exams. You have the support of your teachers, your families, your communities, and of course, you've got the support of the Department of Basic Education and this team. Approach these exams confidently and know that the nation is rooting for your success. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare the country absolutely ready for the 2024 NSC Matric exams. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. I'm going to now ask Dr. Mthembu, the DDG for Curriculum, to please lead with the first part of the presentation. Dr. Mthembu, please come through. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Minister of Basic Education, Deputy Minister of Basic Education, the Director General of Basic Education, colleagues from the Department of Basic Education, colleagues from the media houses. We are now presenting the state of readiness for the 2024 National Senior Certificate Examination. It comes in two parts. In fact, what we are presenting are two sides of the same coin. The other one cannot succeed without the other. If you don't prepare learners well, then you will have problems in the administration. But if you don't have good administration, then you will also have a problem with resulting the same learners. We are going to present then the academic state of readiness or the learner preparation state of readiness, and then from there we'll get to the readiness of the system, which we call administrative readiness. Now, in 2024, what we did, in fact, starting from 2023, we profiled the class of 2024. We had to know their strengths and weaknesses. And then we also had to outline their journey from the General Education and Training certificate band to the Further Education and Training band. Now, the main intention was to identify their strengths and weaknesses as well as challenges in certain subjects. Now, that would help us to tailor curriculum support programs that suits the characteristics of the cohort without forgetting the standard that they must attain in 2024, because the Department of Basic Education believes in the Kaizen philosophy, continuous improvement. Now, this cohort exited the general education and training band with very strong background in home languages. And also they were not weak in the natural sciences, economic management sciences, social sciences, and mathematical sciences. So when they got to grade 10, they were ready to make their choices of subjects so that they get ready for the grade 12 exams. They were affected by COVID-19, just like the cohort of 2023, cohort of 2022, cohort of 2021, and cohort of 2020. Therefore, what happened for this cohort is that they were lucky to get teachers who were experienced in dealing with teaching and learning under the COVID-19 situation. And also, what you want to talk about is the fact that they benefited from recovery. The Department of Basic Education did not waste the crisis. Out of the crisis, more and more programs were made available as part of the recovery program, and they benefited from the recovery program because they got targeted instruction, personalized learning, additional support, socio-economic support, emotional support, and extra learning. Now, in this way, they started to regain knowledge, skills, competencies, and even confidence that they are not going to be affected negatively by COVID-19 on their way to grade 12. Also, they benefited from the relaxation of social distancing, because that's when now they were able to do group work, peer assessment, and all the things that need them to get together. Also, in grade 10, they were able to complete the curriculum because there were no disruptions, and in grade 11. So they wrote a full exam in grade 10 and grade 11. This helped them then to be exam fit. But also because we did not waste the crisis, they also benefited from a lot of material which we developed during the times of COVID-19, because we had to get material for learners to learn at home, new notes, and also electronic material. So those were the benefits they had. And in terms of examination fitness, remember in grade 8 and grade 9, they were writing standardized tests instead of examination. But in grade 10 and 11, they wrote a full examination and a trial examination, which made them to be exam fit. But also, this cohort is also benefiting from the Director General's examination fitness module. It's a booklet which was directed by DG to say, having done everything, let us have a booklet that is going to tell them about kinds of action verbs in the exams, how to answer different types of questions, and some of them go with this DG's module up to university because it talks about study methods and other things. Then we have said that they were strong in home languages, and they were also not poor in content subjects just because of support given. But in grade 10, we had to continue assisting them, and we focused mainly on teacher support so that those support packages provided to schools included lesson plans, subject information PowerPoints, topic tests, WhatsApp information, also learner support mainly in content, and also using broadcast lessons. By the way, what we are talking about is just a drop in the ocean of support. because support is at school level, it's at the district level, it is at provincial level, as well as national level. So here we cover the main areas of support. But if we can discuss support from school level up to national level, we can write volumes and we can spend days. Then also we had support provided to them in grade 11, a lot of support, but some of the areas of support were extra tuition, recorded lessons in gateway subjects, revision material, and the activities in the practical subjects. Focus support was also given to learners doing mathematical sciences, tech maths, mathematics, and mathematical literacy. Remember, in this system, none of our learners come out of this system without any form of mathematics. Others come out with technical maths, others come out with pure mathematics, others come out with mathematical literacy. All those are the forms of mathematics. And then we then focused on the gateway subjects. These gateway subjects are the high enrollment gateway subjects, like accounting, business studies, history, physical science, mathematics, and so on. The main reason why more and more support was given here is that these subjects are offered by the largest number or the highest percentage of learners. The main focus there was orientation workshops at the beginning of the year, very important. Also, teacher networking was encouraged, and we also provided extra material, and we provided weekend and afternoon classes as well as morning classes. And also in that one, we also looked at the novice teachers, those teachers who are teaching the subject for the first time, who are coming from the colleges. More support was given to those teachers. Also, the schools where the subjects, these gateway subjects, were introduced for the first time, they were the focus of support. And also the schools which are offering Matric for the first time. And then we also went on to art subjects. These subjects are growing now, especially dramatic arts. Then there we focused on how they should handle assessment, how they should handle the practical work, or what we call the PET, practical assessment tasks. And we also looked at how we provide them with more and more material as growing subjects. And then there are 9 specializations where we have civil technology with civil service, construction and woodworking, and we have electrical technology with digital systems, PowerPoints and electronics, and then we have mechanical technology with fitting and machining, automotive, as well as metalwork. Now, those specializations are important, and for us, we thought we need now to focus on them as well, including other subjects. And then we provided more support, like the provision of curriculum resource packs for them, the focus on the underperforming schools in these subjects, and also the supply of notes to supplement the available texts. And then we did that in all the 9 specializations. But besides that, there were other provincial initiatives which were very interesting, where the provinces came out with other ways of supporting the class of 2024, including accountability sessions, performance standards meetings, focus on low-hanging fruits, so that all those questions in the previous papers, which seemed to be a little bit easier, they had to study them. Also the question banks, where they grouped all the challenging questions and then they put them in a question bank. Also the subject content meetings with teachers. And inside South African Sign Languages, we provided more and more material to support learners with special needs. And then the weekend classes, we had extra tuition during the weekends, and the schools were able to get learners either on Saturday and sometimes on Sunday for purposes of curriculum coverage. Curriculum coverage these days is not what the teacher covers only. There is teacher curriculum coverage, what the teacher teaches, and there is learner curriculum coverage, what the learner has learned. So we wanted to put those things together. And then we had autumn classes, winter classes, and springs classes. Now, those were holiday extra tuition sessions. In those sessions, we had three forms of centers. We had camps where learners would stay overnight. They write the pre-tuition test, and after that, when they complete and when they go home, they write the post-tuition test, and they stay there, they study, and they are exposed to the best teachers. And then we had cluster centers. In the cluster centers, we had learners in the locality from a number of schools coming together to be taught by best teachers. And also there, we had these pre-tuition tests and post-tuition tests just to measure the impact. And there were standalones. Standalones were those centers where learners would actually walk in and go home, in a school. They were organized by individual schools. And now what was done in the autumn classes, we looked at the revision of Term 1 work and also went on to cover a little bit of Term 2 work. And then in the winter classes, we actually revised Term 1 and Term 2 work and went further to prepare for third term work. All that was done by the best teachers. And then in the springs classes, then that's where we looked at the trial examination papers which have been written recently, and then looked at the challenging questions and the challenging areas, took learners through as way of revision. So the springs classes are not just teaching, but they are revision classes. They form part of the last push. And in terms of resources, we had a lot of resources. In fact, you can write pages, but some of them were Matric, subject study guides, Siyavula textbooks, the Mind the Gap material, Vodacom study notes, MTN study notes, community radios were part of it, WhatsApp for teachers networking, WhatsApp for learners networking, radio education shows, also the DBE examination fitness module. Then the monitoring, it came in three forms. The main reason why we had to monitor, it's because we wanted to give support to these learners, motivate them, and ensure that the teachers who are there, they do the right thing. It came in three forms. The National Department of Basic Education officials, under the leadership of Director General, they visited the centers, monitored those centers, supported the teachers and organizers. And the provincial departments of education, under the leadership of their district, of their heads of departments, they also did the same thing. And provincial district offices or officials, they also organized some monitoring. Therefore, the monitoring was covered by, at three levels to ensure that after that we could say that we were able to support these learners properly. And then the last push program. Remember, after the trial examinations, we go to the last push. That is where we close the gaps identified in the trial examination. Now, our mantra, in fact, what we have done, provinces, schools, provinces, districts, circuits, they have their own last push programs. But we said as DBE, let us write to them, let us invite them to say, you can do everything that you do, but there are specific things which we have prescribed to all of them. The mantra for the last push is work with them until the last day before the examination. In the olden days, we had the countdown. Our countdown was a general countdown where we say we are so many hours away from the start of the exam. That is a general countdown. Now, there is another countdown which is called a subject countdown, where to say how many days are left before we write mathematics. And there's also a paper countdown. How many days are left before we write mathematics paper 2? So each learner has the other countdowns for the subject as well as the paper. So we said we go with them until the last day of the examination. That is the mantra. The other thing that we said to provinces to ensure that they use is the module on exam fitness, the management of the timetable, understanding of the action verbs, how to answer short questions, long questions, essay questions, and what to do on the first day, because the majority of these learners are writing the external exam for the first time. But also we want them in the module about examination misconduct or irregularities or copying. And then the provision of extra resources. We said this exam, National Senior Certificate Examination, CAPS, Curriculum and Assessment Policy, it has more than 19 previous papers. That is final papers and supplementary papers. Then we said these papers should be used in selecting questions to assist learners. And then we have also told them to ensure that they group questions for struggling learners, to say they must take out the knowledge questions and deal with them. And then after that, they take out the comprehension questions, they deal with them. After that, they take from the papers the application questions, they deal with them. And then after that, they take the analysis questions, they deal with them before they expose them to the whole paper, so that these struggling learners can move from the simple to the complex, so that they first understand these types of questions and also then go to the final paper, to the full paper. The no candidate left behind. The no candidate left behind. We say teachers must watch those learners who are struggling, ensure that they assess them and check where they are. Then broadcast lessons are also going to be there in each province by way of revision. And the role of parents. We said the provinces, through the governing bodies, must ensure that parents assist learners by creating a conducive environment for studying, assist with studying resources where the learners need them, and also communicate with the teachers about the coping of learners, and also monitor the social behavior of these learners. Minister has mentioned that WhatsApp, TikTok, and everything must stand aside. But also, the parents must help to reduce the number of house chores or family chores for learners, especially the girl learners, to say, now the focus should be on the exam. That was the academic state of readiness or the preparation of learners. Thank you.
Good afternoon to our Minister. Good afternoon to our Deputy Minister, our Director General, all senior officials present, together with the media contingent, and most importantly to the viewers this afternoon. Our Minister has already provided us with a broad overview in terms of our state of readiness in terms of the examination system. Now, our learners have gone through 13 years of learning, and we have a responsibility to make sure that we provide the most conducive environment for these learners to write the examination and demonstrate their full potential. I think we are fortunate in South Africa that we've had an examination system that has evolved and improved over the years, and we certainly have an administrative system that is internationally comparable. We have well-defined norms and standards, and as Minister has indicated, clear standard operating procedures so that every element, every component of the examination administered at provincial level follows our standard operating procedures. We've also had the advantage of administering a June examination, which has served as the pre-run to this more important end-of-the-year examination, which involves a higher number. Very quickly, just to give you some details in terms of our numbers, we have 727,121 full-time candidates. And interestingly, we have 4,000, almost 4,000 more candidates compared to last year. So it's a system that is growing. We are a little bit concerned about our part-time numbers. That's decreased from 180,000 in 2023 to 155,000. But one of the reasons is that because our learners now have a June exam, these part-time candidates, adult candidates, they already have an opportunity, so not many of them are coming to this particular examination. Looking at progress learners, a very important policy in the basic education system where a learner is not expected to spend more than 4 years in a phase. So as a result, there would be learners in grade 11 who would have failed previously in the phase, and they are then promoted to grade 12. Now, we know that there's been much criticism against this particular policy, but I must say that our progress learners have proved us wrong in terms of our criticism. Many of them have gone on to pass the examination, to obtain admission to bachelor's studies, and some of them have even obtained distinction. So it just shows, give these learners a chance, give them the additional support, and they will certainly perform beyond our expectation. In terms of numbers, we are a little concerned about our technology subjects, but I must say there's been a steady increase in numbers across most of our specializations. Now, our Minister of Basic Education is not just responsible for public education. Minister also has a responsibility for our private schools and our private assessment bodies. And therefore, Minister has already indicated what are the numbers of candidates writing the examinations of the two independent boards. The one is the Independent Examination Board, as the IB, as we refer to it as, and the other is the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute, better known as Sakai. There are 5,820 candidates that will be writing the examination with Sakai, and 16,400 writing the examination with the IB, or the Independent Exam Board. But what is very interesting, that 28,000 candidates from independent schools write the state exam, which is a sure vote of confidence in the public system, where 28,000 of these learners write the state exam. Now, moving to our preparation, and Minister has given us a very good overview, but I'm just going to touch on some of the important or the detail that Minister has not covered. Exam centers, every exam center in the country that will be writing the exam gets audited. And we classify our exam centers into high risk, medium risk, and low risk. And our high risk centers are either taken over by the district in terms of the chief invigilator and the invigilator, or we place a resident monitor who's there for the entire duration of the exam. In the case of our medium and low risk centers, we will use what is referred to as a roving monitor. So we're leaving no stone unturned in terms of ensuring that no irregularities occur, particularly in our high-risk centers. And high-risk centers would be centers that have had irregularities in previous years. Registration of candidates is of critical importance. You must make sure that every candidate is registered accurately, and through that accurate registration, we can then ensure that every learner will receive the right question paper at the right time and be processed accurately and receive his statement of his or her statement of result. Now, we have conducted an audit of the registration database of every province, and we've given them a certificate of approval to say your registration database is in order, you can now proceed with the subsequent steps. Our question papers have all been approved by Umalusi, and they currently are undergoing printing, and we cater for learners with special needs. We have question papers that are brailled, adapted papers for the deaf, and we also apply accommodation, extra time, provide a scribe for a learner that's not able to write, and readers for those that may be struggling to read. So all our learners are fully accommodated. One of our pet programs is the South African Sign Language Examination. It's being written for the 7th time. Now, what is interesting about South African Sign Language is that the learner receives the question paper that is signed. He then responds in sign language. That gets recorded via a webcam, and that then gets marked centrally under the supervision of the DBE through the use of experts in sign language. Our printing, packing is all on track. We've done an audit of all sites where printing, packing, and question papers are stored, as Minister has already indicated. I've spoken about the writing of the examination, and in total, 6,909 centers will be writing this particular examination. Coming very quickly to marking, I mean, marking is possibly the most important component of this entire examination cycle, because this is where the actual judgment, the actual assessment is made of the learner evident. And you may be concerned about, are the right educators appointed as markers? And let me assure the South African public that we have a stringent process of appointment. We have clearly defined criteria which are in the personnel administrative measures referred to as the PAM, and this gets done by the provincial department. But the DBE conducts an audit of markers that are appointed to make sure that there's compliance. And we have picked up some anomalies which have been corrected already. In addition to the DBE doing an audit, Umalusi comes in and does its own audit as well. So you can be rest assured that the answer scripts of our grade 12 learners are marked by the best educators in the country. Our marking centers have all been set, 188 of them, and we've audited them to make sure that we create the most conducive environment for our markers to be able to mark this examination so that they give every script the due attention that it requires. An important process in this marking is the standardization meeting. And give me a few seconds. Now, marking takes place in the 9 provinces. But before marking starts, we have a national meeting with the experts in the subject, and that would be your internal moderator and the chief marker from every province. So you get these subject specialists into a national meeting coordinated by the DBE under the oversight of Umalusi. And if it's a maths paper, we go through at this meeting every question, and this is done after the examination, every question, look at the marking guideline, look at all the options that a learner could present. How did the learner interpret the question under exam condition? And you then come up with a comprehensive marking guideline which is accepted by all the experts in that subject. And that's not the end. After that marking guideline has been agreed upon, we then have a training session. Now, what is important about the training session is that we give all the internal moderators and chief markers the same script to mark, and we look at the deviations. And finally, after about the 3rd or 4th script, we find that there's a very low tolerance range. And that's when we allow them to go through an authorization process. And only markers that are authorized are allowed to mark the examination. So there's a lot of stringency attached to this process before we expose a marker to live scripts. In terms of mark capture, all our mark capture centers have been established, and we're ready to go in that particular area. Monitoring, we've set a threshold of 70%. In other words, when any examination is being written, at least 70% of those centers must be monitored by an external and independent monitor. Irregularities, I know that is a concern with regard to, are we going to identify irregularities when they occur? But besides being reactive, we've also been proactive in trying to instill in our learners a sense of honesty, integrity. Hence the pledge signing, which our minister participated together with our MECs on Friday, the past Friday. We also got every parent and learner to sign a commitment agreement where they commit that the parent will ensure that the learner complies with the rules and regulations of the exam, but also that every learner and candidate will be honest. And finally, I think it's all systems go, as our minister has confidently indicated, and we will be releasing the results finally on the 14th of January 2025. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Polia and Dr. Mthembu, and indeed the Minister. We have now come to the point where we are going to take questions from the WhatsApp line, as well as the colleagues that are in the room. By show of hands, can you please indicate if you have any questions? And Ishmael, is it you on the WhatsApp line? Yes, please do indicate as well if there are any questions that are on the WhatsApp line. But let's start in the room. There are 2 hands that I can see. Is it more? I think it's 3, 4. I think it's 3, 4 hands, if I'm not mistaken. Let me start at the back and move to the front. Please start with your name. We can hear you.
Importance given to signing the pledge, like what on a substantial or scientific or objective kind of basis, what is the value of pledging in terms of preventing dishonesty?
All right, thank you very much. Let's stay on this side.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. So from Apple from DBE News. I've got 4 questions, Elijah.
Please proceed.
So the SA Weather Service has issued warnings for tomorrow and into the week, especially with KZN, and that has been a problem for that province for a while, with expecting floods and some serious disruptions. How is this going to be handled, especially seeing that, you know, we just come from this crisis caused by the snow and severe flooding recently in KZN specifically? And then when you speak about ESCOM, I know that in the past the department would have conversations with ESCOM, you know, and the cooperation that you have with the utility. Have you had this conversation yet with them to support in terms of stability of power supply for the exam processes? I know that there's no load shedding, but we are seeing areas with a large number of load reduction that is happening at the moment. There's always a risk when it comes to protests, and it's often resulted in rewrites in Mpumalanga recently, actually. So what's the message to communities? I think we've also spoken to this regarding protests that disrupt the exams. We saw this last year with the NSC exams in Mpumalanga. And what are you doing to address the decline in the number of learners taking the so-called critical subjects? Is it because schools are encouraging learners to take easier subjects to boost the results? Thank you.
All right, thanks very much. Let's move to the other side of the room. Vera?
Mokgadi here from Newsroom Africa. I think just the first question being on the high-risk centres and those additional monitors that will be placed there. Could we be able to identify what makes these centres high risk and perhaps maybe where they are perhaps as well? And I know, of course, last year we had a pass rate of 82.9%. Minister, do you have a target at all? Do you measure the success of the final exams through this as well? And of course, as well as you've mentioned, the grade 8 students were the ones that came in at the height of the pandemic. The department has, since those disruptions, been talking about clawing back some of the learners that we lost during those years of the pandemic. And just an update in regards, have you found those
missing students, if you'd like, back into the education system. And while we have you here as a department, perhaps a comment on the issues that have been arising in spaza shops. Obviously, this is not taking place in the school premises, but it is affecting school children. I don't know if the department could perhaps give us any comments on their concerns and how they are addressing this collectively. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much. Stimorol.
Thank you very much, Ukenze, from the SABC News. Minister, Umalusi actually approved the release of the results last year, even though the exams were actually marred by incidents of group copying, and there were about, I believe, 11 suspects that were arrested having, I think it's fraudulent certificates. What have we learned from what actually transpired last year, and how are we going to do things better this year? And also, the timetables that were released last year, Umalusi had actually approved them, but they were found to have some errors and everything. So how confident are you that this year's batch would not have challenges as the ones from last year? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Offenser. I assume you're referring to question papers.
Yes.
When you say, all right, that's fine. Thank you, Ishmael. What's up?
Thanks, Chair. We have Madam Charles from News 24. Minister, how many high-risk areas have been identified where the 70 part-time monitors will be deployed? Can you please provide us with an update on the budget constraints impact on teaching post cuts? And how have your engagement with provincial departments been so far? Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you very much. The minister's here, but the deputy minister is also here, as well as the DG. So at the right moment, the minister will request them to make their inputs. Minister, please come through to tackle the questions. We'll have the last round after this, colleagues.
Thank you, Elijah. Some of the questions the DM will respond to, and I've allocated some of the questions to the Director General. So I just wanted to deal with, firstly, the question from Inside Education about what's the value of a pledge. I think it's important that when we look at accountability in the system, we don't look at it only from a punitive point of view, and that we are encouraging learners to understand that they have to take accountability for their own conduct, because of course when they are caught copying, it's got a profound impact on their lives and going forward. And I'm going to allow the DM to speak to some of the issues around protest. My message to communities: protesting is a democratically protected right. All my plea is that our exam centers and our schools are national assets. There are these children, over 800,000 candidates, who are going to be having this one opportunity to write an exam that can change the course of their lives. While we can understand that protests are very much part of our democratic dispensation, I just ask communities to be mindful of the fact that protest action can disrupt this critical time, and that we would appreciate support from communities to being able to understand that we are starting these exams on Monday, tomorrow, but we are going to be, it's going to be an ongoing process, and we do ask that there has to be some kind of consideration given to that, at least to give our learners the best shot at being able to handle these exams. Then there were some questions. I will leave to the DG what makes one marking center high risk. Then there were some issues around some questions around food and food poisoning and some of the deaths that we've seen. Firstly, I must first indicate that our deepest condolences go to the families who've lost their loved ones and their learners during this time. And of course, the first thing that we did as the department is to first find out from the provinces whether or not these incidents of food poisoning were emanating from the National School Nutrition Program. Because of course that is what we are responsible for. we then were able to ascertain that they were not coming from school food that was served from schools. So they were not part of the school nutrition program. But in isolated incidents, learners had perhaps bought food or snacks from local shops. So in the last couple of days, I have been in contact with the Minister of Health, Dr. Motsoaledi, to say to him, while these things may not be, the access to these snacks and perhaps the poisonous substance may not be in our schools, it is our learners who are now at risk. And so he has convened a task team that he has included the NICD so that they can do an assessment of what is the problem so that we can deal with it at source. Of course, he understands the necessity of getting onto this matter as urgently as possible. He has assured me that they will be in a position to be able to advise so that we may be able to advise our learners. But in the meantime, we've also said to our learners and our parents that we need to be extra vigilant about what is bought and what is brought into schools. And of course, the provinces have been incredibly responsive. Gauteng has been incredibly responsive in dealing with making sure that learners are taken to hospital, and many of them have recovered and been home. But of course, we have lost learners. And that for me is an incredible tragedy, and we need to make sure that this does not happen and does not happen in our schools. Then the other issue that was asked, and I think that I should handle, is the issue around budget cuts and our engagement with provinces. As colleagues would know, that we have done an analysis of the deficit in provincial budgets. And the reason why we wanted to do that is because we wanted to have a consolidated report that we take to Treasury to say, in this year or in the next financial year, this is the kind of financial assistance that we need. Our absolute focus and obsession as the department is to make sure that we save frontline services. We have to save our teachers and make sure that there's a teacher in every classroom, and that we have to keep the ratio of learner to educator as low as possible, because we know large classes do not yield good education outcomes. And this case has been made at a cabinet level. This case has been made with the Minister of Finance. And I do believe that we will then be in a position to hear from him at the end of this month when he tables the medium-term budget policy statement on what support will be given to the sector, but also what support will be given to the sector come the new financial year and his tabling of his budget in February. I'm going to leave it there. Perhaps, DM, if you could come and deal with some of the questions around the subjects to boost results. I think that's important, and dealing with some of the issues around there was one question about a target. The lady asked about a target. Look, I must say this, that we have to look at the education system as a continuum. We have to make sure that from an early age, learners have access to quality early learning. So from ECD, from 2 grade R, and we have to make sure that throughout the system, we are strengthening it. I do want to see an opportunity one day where we reorientate our thinking about what makes the system successful. An over-reliance on saying the matric exams are the sole marker of success, in my view, is not the way to look at it. A marker of success is how many learners stay in the system, how many learners are participating, how many learners are passing, and how learners are thriving. And so it's not simply good enough to say at the end, this is now the marker of success. And that's why we've got regular testing in the system to make sure that we are constantly checking how well are we doing. That's why we take part in international benchmarkings to see how well we are doing with our peers. So I'm not going to put a number to the target. I'm wishing our learners well, and I'm pretty sure they're going to make us proud. But as I say, I think we've got to focus on the system as a whole and how strong it is. Thanks, DM.
Thank you, Minister. I think I will put a number for you. Want to retain the 82%. Yes, the question came with disruptions that we can put a number, but the disruptions will lead to us not achieving the number that we want to. But the system really is getting there, is promising. So we're not looking at anything below what we got last year. Minister, thank you. I want to respond about the issue of ESCOM and municipalities. There was a meeting that took place between the department, as we always do. Every year, the department will have a meeting with ESCOM, and even during the time when there was still load shedding and what. But remember, now we have a challenge of what is called by municipalities load reduction, not load shedding, because ESCOM has ascertained as that there will be no load shedding, as there is no load shedding anyway. Especially that those subjects that need electricity will be written this week. Your ICT, CAT will be written this week, and they promised us that there will be no disturbances whatsoever. But we encourage provinces to also enter into discussions with municipalities, because municipalities are the ones now who are embarking on this load reduction as a way of curbing their debt to ESCOM. Then the municipalities also, together with SALGA, they promise that exams will run. We know that sometimes there will be those notorious people who want to switch off the schools because it's examinations. That's why the minister wrote letters to all MECs to say they must pay where it's needed, but though we are in a financial constraints. On the security of papers, we have always been, and we are still, and there is this new commitment by the security cluster that they are working with us. And the security cluster is not only our police officers, including Defence Force. When the floods in KwaZulu-Natal may come, the Defence Force is there. If they have to use a helicopter, whatever, because our police officers have always been hands-on when coming to examinations and the distribution of papers. There will be Baki that is making sure that the security of papers is there. So we still believe, though the DG will add on that one, but the meetings were very effective. Minister, I spoke about the targets. The group coping, as Dr. Polia or both of them, they spoke about the risk centers. Those centers that are risk, where we identify that there's a group coping, like it was indicated that in Mpumalanga, somewhere in one of the districts in Mpumalanga, some of the centers where we think that it's a risk, they've been taken over by DBE, not allowing those teachers whom we suspect that they were culprits in making sure that our learners are coping. Then they have been even withdrawn to participate in the examination, in any form of administration of examination, because they don't qualify. So they are withdrawn. So the DBE has taken over, got capable teachers from somewhere, and officials, of course, to handle those examinations. I want to, the postcard minister has attended that one. The signing of the pledge, just to add to what the minister said, really, we are putting a sense of accountability on the side of learners and their parents and the schools. Because when you sign a pledge, sometimes when you want to commit an error, that thing that I signed a pledge comes in. And our learners, the way they prepare, they go to school every day, they go to school on Sundays, and all what they have presented here. Holidays, they don't have holidays. They prepare themselves for the examination. So they don't want anyone to come and disturb their preparedness, because they are prepared. So when you come in now as a teacher, you show them a paper, because some of the papers that are lingering around are not even authentic papers. We change the security features. Some people don't know that we changed. Then you'll circulate a paper that is written Mathematics 2024. with a barcode of last year or of 2021. And we know that we're not using this now. And they are confusing our learners. Our learners are not welcoming those things. That's why if you send them messages to say, this is the paper, the learners themselves, they tell the department that this is happening because they don't want that, because they are ready. They've been prepared to run the examinations. So we are calling upon our learners throughout South Africa, those that are listening now, don't entertain any paper that is written 2024, that it's a paper, because it will misdirect your efforts. And some are even sending what we may call memoranda for a paper, which is not. Our papers are secured. I think the DG will cover that one. DG?
Thank you very much, Minister, Deputy Minister, and colleagues who presented, and to all those who asked questions. Minister and DM have covered quite a number of questions. The issue of the weather, I sit on the forum that deals with disaster management in the country, over and above the NAT joints and the prof joints that the minister referred to. We monitor the situation virtually every day, every week, proactively. And the measures that Deputy Minister and Minister have alluded to in terms of dealing with inclement weather, possible natural disasters obtain. We work with all agencies of government, including the National Defence Force, in dealing with possibilities of major disasters, and that is also localized at provincial level up to district level. So we're monitoring the warning, Tsehu. I'm working with colleagues from both provinces, KZN and Eastern Cape, but I'm also liaising with the DG of COGTA so that we remain ready if there's anything that needs to happen to rescue the class of 2024 and make sure that the exams proceed incident-free. So we really occupied with that throughout. And I've seen this. I think this warning started Thursday, Friday. So we've been monitoring them. DM also confirmed we are in regular discussion and planning with ESCOM, but also with local municipalities. There is something called power-driven subjects or power-based subjects such as CAT, IT, and technical subjects. In the past years, we've been able to secure a very good relationship and working together with both ESCOM and local municipalities to insulate learners who are writing exams from any disruption. I'm quite confident, although with the exams, we always say nobody has the experience of administering a new exam, like the exam of 2024. Nobody has that experience, and we all need to remain vigilant. We have the experience of 2023 and others, but our vigilance must be heightened based on the fact that this is a new exam for us completely. So there is no complacency. We remain extremely vigilant. And our engagement with colleagues in ESCOM and local municipalities will also continue. The decline in critical subjects, yes, indeed. Our major concern is around what we call BCM subjects, Minister. Your business studies, your accounting and economics. We're extremely worried about that. We have been addressing this with provincial education departments. We've had one-on-ones with district directors. I hope if they are watching, they can confirm that. There's not even a single meeting where we are not raising this with them. And we raise this with them sharply. And we suspect that part of the decline is precipitated by the fact that we're putting high demands on schools to perform. And I think if you read the response of the minister is saying we are cautiously optimistic, but we don't want to put our heads on the block to say we are expecting this to happen. And you've heard what Deputy Minister said. Deputy Minister is saying the least that you could do is to maintain your previous performance. Our view is that every year's performance must be better than previous year's performance. And we base it on the work that we do. We work extremely hard. The only way for improvement in basic education is it's hard work. It's enormous sacrifice, which I think everybody out there would bear testimony to. Missing learners in the system, I think I'm going to disappoint you there and say our team of researchers could not really corroborate the notion of many learners dropping out of the system. In fact, to the contrary, our learners' numbers grew from 2020 from about 12 million to 13.4 million, close to 13.5 million, which should then say that we've experienced an increase into the system than a decrease. There are learners who might have not reported during certain times and so on, but eventually those learners were accounted for in full in the system. We continue to analyze our dropout rate grade by grade. The minister has even given a directive that we must move to synchronizing our system with other systems. We've succeeded with Home Affairs, well synchronized. We made a very good progress in synchronizing with TVET colleges. The team has been giving us an update so that we account for every learner in the country. But it will not be expected that learners who start from grade 1 will be the same number of learners who pitch in grade 12. No system in the world works like that. I don't know. The critics who seem to suggest that that should be the case, I don't know where they get it. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. Because some learners get retained. We all know, even in this room, some people we started with did not progress with us until we went through the exit in the system. Our major problem in South Africa is not dropout. Our major problem is large failure and repetition rate. And we've said that repeatedly. You'll see when we release the results in January. That table that we give of the entry point of learners and their progression in the system until grade 12, it will tell you that there are instances where numbers go down, instances where they go up as they move from one grade to the other, and there's a bulge in some of the grades, which means that's where the retention is high. And those learners don't move within 12 years. But over time, you can see learners that used to go out of the system, Minister, used to be about 500,000. We're now sitting at 700,000, which means that the system, it's improving. It's becoming much healthier than it was before. What have we learned last year? DM covered that. As I've said, the danger is to assume that this year's exam is going to be the same as last year. We've put in measures in place, and by the way, part of the reason why we have centers that are declared high-risk centers, We have 987 high-risk centers. Somebody asked about the number. 987 are high-risk centers. And how do we determine a high-risk center? There are two main reasons. One, if you are presenting grade 12 learners for the first time, you are a high-risk center because we don't have any background of your credibility in presenting grade 12. So you are a high-risk. Automatically, you are a high-risk center. Number two, are centers where we've picked up irregularities. You are a high risk, and you are deemed to be such a center. And we deploy more monitors. We put other measures in place. From Umalusi's point of view, when they even do an assessment for credibility, some of those centers are not even accredited to run the exams. I hope I have covered, how many high risks have been identified. I've given the number. The disruptions, DM and Minister have addressed that. We really regret what happened in Mpumalanga last year, where learners were prevented from, sitting for exams. I think other communities can learn from others, Minister. In Gauteng, for instance, in Johannesburg West, there's been an amazing collaboration between the district director, taxi owners, and taxi drivers, where they insulate learners from community protests. And they make sure not only for exams, even during the normal running of the schools, when community protests happen, learners are completely insulated and they are allowed to go to school. And we want to encourage all communities to do that. We don't fight with our children, but we protect our children and we insulate our children from any harm. Minister, I think I've addressed all of them. The budget issue, you've addressed it quite eloquently. Thank you very much.
Minister, I've been reliably informed that there are no questions on the WhatsApp line. So the second round will have one hand only in this room. And then we'll close thereafter. Tseho, what's the question?
Thank you so much. Just two questions from my side. The one was, during their briefing, were concerned about staffing matters. I think it was markers or sometime, I don't remember exactly, but they were concerned about staffing matters regarding these NSC exams during their briefing. Can you please just address that and what is happening there? Has the DBE been able to close all those concerns that were raised by Umalusi? And does it have anything also to do with the budget constraints that the department is facing? And the DG just said that some centers are not accredited, or Umalusi found that some centers were not accredited to even run the exams. With this NEC exams that are taking place, are all centers now accredited, especially those high-risk ones? Are they all accredited to run the exams, all the centers that you have? But also, how does that happen, that you have centers that are not accredited? And what is then the message to candidates who will be sitting, and how do they check that these centers are accredited? Thank you.
All right. Just to confirm that there's no other hand. Okay, there's no other hand. So those are the two questions. Dr. Paula will handle that. All right.
Thank you for that question. In terms of shortage of markers, I think Umalusi was merely noting an observation, but I can assure the media contingency as well as the South African public that this is not a problem at the moment. We've adopted at least 3 mechanisms that will deal with some subjects where there are shortage of markers. Now, basically, the shortage of markers occurs in the languages, and it's in 2 languages. It's in English home language, and Afrikaans home language, and first additional language. Now, the reason we have shortages in languages is simply because in languages we have 3 papers, and each of these papers is marked separately by a separate group of markers. At school, one teacher is able to mark all 3 papers, but during a marking session you need 3 different groups of markers, 3 times the number of markers. So to address that problem, what we've done, we've adopted either a staggered marking approach, where the English paper 3, the Afrikaans paper 3, these would be marked before the full marking session commences. So markers that mark paper 3 will then be able to go and mark either paper 1 or paper 2. So that's the first approach. The second approach is that where we cannot adopt staggered marking, we then would go the route of extending the number of marking days. So if the number of marking days was 7 days, we increase it by an additional day, so that for the shortage of markers in that particular paper, we either increase it by a day or 2. But I also want to indicate that a number of our provinces have gone on a second and a third recruitment drive, just to encourage markers to come on board. And that has really been resolved in terms of the shortage of markers. Umalusi also raised a staffing capacity. Generally, with the budget constraints, there are vacancies in our provincial units as well as at DBE. But here again, our contingency plan was to move officials during the exam period from other units, other directorates, into the examination unit so that no vacancy is unoccupied or not attended to, and as a result that becomes a risk. So, and when people are brought in from other units into the examination unit, it's an official appointment. They fully understand the responsibility that they're taking on. So that shortage of staff has been dealt with. Umalusi did raise the point that these kind of interim measures are not appropriate, and Minister, DM and DG have taken note of that, and that will certainly be attended to in the future. So that was the issue of shortages of capacity. Centers not accredited. What I need to explain is that in the case of independent schools, an independent school must first be accredited by Umalusi before they are allowed to be registered as an examination center and offer the exam. Now, obviously, the accreditation process can be a long, drawn-out process because Umalusi must conduct a physical audit and make sure that such a school is delivering quality education. So accreditation can take possibly 2 years, can take place 3 years, but in the interim, those learners have grade 12 learners. So we therefore then say that because they are learners at the school is not accredited, our responsibility as a department is the learners. And therefore what happens is that we will take over the exam. We will use that school as a center, but we will appoint the chief invigilator, appoint the invigilators, so that the examination is not compromised given the fact that the center is not accredited. The other option we've used is to establish what we call a designated center. It is a separate center where part-time learners write the exam, and we can then move the learners from those independent schools into those designated centers. And again, designated centers are under the direct supervision of either the district official or the provincial official. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Polia. Minister, I know that our colleagues will withhold some questions which they are going to ask you during the one-on-one sessions. They always do that. It's not a bad thing. But, ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for the attention that you've given us. We've come to the end of the media briefing. Minister, DM, DG, DDG, Chief Director, and colleagues seated at this side, we appreciate your presence and your support. Minister will be here for any additional clarification, and DM is here as well. And let's conclude an hour and a half later. Thank you very much.
If you found this video informative, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more content like this. And as always, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.